For today's session, we're going to make an apple crumble and a very basic egg custard to go with it. A wide variety of ingredients out in front of me, but basically for this dish there's three main components and three elements. So the first element is the main apple mixture itself that we make to put in the bottom layer before the crumble mix. So very simple ingredients that go with that. Here I have pre-prepared apples. I shall show you in a second just exactly how to cut and prepare the apple and peel them, but in this bowl I have pre-prepared apples. The other ingredient for the apple mixture is golden brown caster sugar, which you will get in the sugar section in the supermarket. I have some vanilla essence and I have some dried cinnamon powder. Now, ideally, and the best quality ingredient to use for anything like the custard that we're going to do would be a vanilla pod, but in this case they're very difficult to get and they can be quite expensive, so if you're stuck you can use vanilla essence, bought again in the bakery section of the supermarket. For our crumble base we use plain flour. We use again quite a large quantity of golden caster sugar, some porridge oats, any cereal based porridge oats are fine, and then we use butter as well. Now in this case I have used it's a mix of half butter, half vegetable fat, which is absolutely fine for a crumble mix. Moving on down to these ingredients. This is our ingredients for our egg custard. So we have half milk, half cream, caster sugar and egg yolks that have been separated, and again later in the video I will show you exactly how to separate an egg. Ideally when we're making the custard, we want this custard to thicken itself by using the egg yolks. This is basically known as what is known as a crème anglaise. It does not go as thick as a commercial based custard mix such as Bird's or Ambrosia that you may be used to. So to get the viscosity and the thickness, I'm going to also add a little bit of corn flour just to help give a bit of viscosity and thickness to the custard sauce. That is all of your ingredients. There's quite a lot of ingredients there, but they're actually multitudes of the same thing. So we have our apple mixture here, our crumble base in the centre, and our ingredients then for our crème anglaise custard on the end. First thing I'm going to show you then is the apples. So as you can see, I have pre-prepared the vast majority of these for ease of filming. I have them all submerged in cold water, and this helps to stop them going brown. Effectively when the inside of the apple gets in contact with the air, the oxygen makes it turn brown. So we don't want that, and a way of slowing that down is to submerge them in cold water. Now, I have 4 pieces of apple here that I have pre-cut. So I've cut this apple into a quarter. And you can see in the centre we have the core. So I simply want to take my knife and remove the core, and then I want to come along and peel the outside away, the outside skin. These apples are cooking apples. They are slightly more bitter than eating apples. You can buy them in the supermarket, they're very cheap. I think 6 of these were about £1. And they're great for desserts such as the apple crumble that we're making today. That's what we're left with, is that peeled part of the apple. I like to keep, when I'm making any apple based dishes, I like to keep the apples in large chunks. The reason I keep them in large chunks is because as they start to cook and the heat hits them, they start to turn into basically mush, and we don't want that. We want a nice chunky piece of apple. Now this apple mixture is going to go through two cooking processes. It's going to start off in the pan, in the pot, and we're going to make a bit of a paste sauce in the bottom, and then we're going to add in the remainder of our large chunky apples. The remainder of this apple will then be put into a tray, and within the tray it will then go into the oven. When I'm cooking any apple dishes such as this, I like to put a little splash of water in the bottom of the pan. The reason for this is it helps stop basically any of the apple hitting the bottom of the pan and burning before any liquid starts to come out of the actual apples as they're cooking. So to start the apple mixture for the crumble, I like to add approximately 1/4 of the apples to the bottom of my pan with a splash of water. The reason I do this is I want to start to cook these apples down, and I want to really give them a really good cook down, and I want to make effectively an apple sauce or a paste in the bottom of the pan. What this is then going to do when we add the remainder of the apple is it's going to help bind it together and make a chunkier, stickier solution. So now I have the first quarter of the apples in the bottom of the pan. I'm just going to allow these to cook, keep moving them about the pan, and as they begin to cook, these apples will break down. To the pan, I then add my caster sugar, stirring all the time. While my apples are cooking away in my pan, I'm now going to begin making the crumble topping for our apple crumble. So the first thing I do is take my plain flour and I put it into my larger bowl. To this I add my brown caster sugar, which is quite a lot. Give that a light stir just to start to amalgamate together the flour and the brown sugar. Once that's roughly stirred through, I then want to add my fat content. In this case it is a butter and margarine mix, which can be bought in the supermarkets. This butter is cold and this butter is cut into small blocks. Now, using the very tips of my fingers, I don't want to use the base of my hand because the base of my hand will put across my body heat and it will melt down the fat content, which I don't want. So just using my fingertips, I gently begin to rub the flour and the fat together, just using my fingertips. This can of course be done in a blender or a mixer to create the same consistency. I want the consistency of this to be that of fine breadcrumbs. So now, as you can see, the mixture is now looking like fine breadcrumbs. And finally we add our porridge oats at the end and give them a very rough mix through, and that gives a little bit of texture. As you can see, this apple is now starting to cook. So using the back of my using the back of my spoon, I'm trying to break this down as much as possible and to create into a pulp-like mixture. And if you think, like this mixture here, it's getting too dry, don't be afraid to add a little splash of water. Just to help aid the cooking process. There's still a few chunks remaining in that, but I'm happy enough now that I have enough liquid in there and sauce-like structure to add the remainder of my apples to that. Now I'm going to add the remainder of my apples. What I want to do now is coat them in the sauce-like mixture in the bottom of my pan. Now I've given these apples a few minutes. I give them a toss in the apple sauce that we made at the bottom of the pan, and they're now well coated. So as you can see, I have left these quite big and very chunky, and they're still effectively raw. They're in the raw stage, and pretty much, and they're going to cook through now in the oven nice and slow with the crumble topping on the top, and then that way we have nice bite chunks of apple within our crumble rather than just going into a mushy paste. So I'm just going to tip all of these are tipped into the bottom of the pan, or tray, apologies. And we want to bring with it as much of that applesauce as we can. We spread this out on the bottom of our tray, like so. I'm just using my nice pig spatula to scrape all of the applesauce from the bottom of the pan. Spatula is one of my favourite tools in the kitchen because it prevents any wastage. Now that pan looked quite empty earlier, and now that I've rubbed around it with my spatula, I've actually taken out that much sauce. So very good. Now I have all my apple mixture in the bottom of my tray. I want to add my crumble, and as you can see from this bowl, there's an awful lot of crumble, but that's fine. We want plenty of it. We want plenty of it on there. There's nothing worse than anything like that with a little skip over the top. I want plenty of crumble to give it plenty of texture. And I'm just generously sprinkling that over the top. That is the crumble mix on top of our apple crumble. Nice and generous, plenty of quantities of it. So now this is going to go into the oven for 160 degrees. About 160 degrees for about 45 minutes. Now for the egg custard that we're going to make. So as you can see from the ingredients, we have half cream, half milk, sugar and egg yolks. So to remove the yolk, crack the egg with a bowl underneath, pass the yolk between each side of the eggshell. The white will fall out the bottom. The whites can be used for meringue, pavlova, that type of dessert. And you're left with your yolks here. The first stage of this is we want to bring our milk and our cream to the boil. While that is boiling, or coming to the boil, we want to prepare our sugar and our egg mixture. All of our eggs go into a mixing bowl. Our egg yolk goes into the mixing bowl. Then we add our sugar. To this, we can add a capsule of vanilla essence. With a whisk, we gently mix the egg yolk and the sugar together. My milk and cream mixture has now came to the boil, so now it is time to temper our egg and sugar mix. Now the reason we temper this is to stop our sugar and egg mix scrambling. If I add all of this egg mixture to the hot heat of the cream and the milk, it's going to scramble and it's going to curdle, and then the whole thing's ruined. So what we have to do is bring this temperature up gradually. How we do this is by tempering the mixture. So I take a small quantity of my hot milk and I pour it in, and I'm whisking all the time. And that is bringing the temperature up gradually. And I'm moving it constantly and continuously. Now that I'm happy that that's well mixed through, I pour this in, and again I mix my mixture all the time continuously to prevent it from scrambling and splitting out. You see, I'm constantly moving this mix. Now, my pot is off the boil at this stage, and this is the bit where we have to be very careful. So I now put this pot onto a low heat. This is at the lowest setting that I can possibly get this cooker to. My cooker is now at the lowest possible setting that I can get it to, and number one. And what I'm doing is I've taken a rubber spatula and I'm constantly and continuously stirring the bottom of this pan. And any minute amounts of egg yolk that are starting to cook will start to touch the bottom of the pan. But before they go solid, if I mix them into the remaining mixture, this sauce will start to thicken gradually. It must be done with care, and it must be done over a very low heat. I'm constantly moving any liquid from the sides of the pan. Now, I did state at the start of the video that this creme anglaise will not go as thick as commercial custards do. And people are used to very thick custard. So what we will do is we will add some corn flour to this mix to give it some viscosity. My custard is on the heat and it is thickening. I'm just going to add this little bit of corn flour now. So just make sure it's hot, and I add just a little bit at a time until it starts to thicken. Now the crumble is out of the oven. We have a nice golden brown colour on the top. Serving is very simple. Take a fish slice, cut your desired portions. And gently use the fish slice to get all of the apple at the bottom and the crumble coating on the top. Then to serve, some nice custard on the side.